So at Hunter Ridge Dairy, we milk about 7,000 cows on two different sites that are 3 miles apart. The way we operate now is we have all close-ups, fresh cows and high cows or breeding cows on one site, and then they're moved to the other dairy once they're determined to be pregnant or DNB. So currently, probably our biggest challenge is milking on multiple sites. That spreads our management thin, as well as we've got redundancy in a variety of positions that we have, which is causing our labor costs to go up and also maybe not be able to give us the oversight that we need for each individual dairy. I think the overall general management oversight, it's pretty similar from dairy to dairy. It's the basics for building the dairy, but when we're spread out between multiple sites, it becomes a little bit more difficult to make sure that those things are happening how you want them to 100% of the time. And also it causes us to rely on our middle management much more than we would if we were on a single site. I think as many people know, dairies are becoming a more of a technological issue than the cow issue. You'll have your herd management software, your feeding software, possibly activity software, plus one or two more systems that are feeding into one or feeding into your day-to-day management and things that you need to look at. And it doesn't take very long, and you've got data overload. So I think one of the big challenges is how do we get data from 4 or 5 different programs onto a single area so we can work more efficiently and spend time fixing problems rather than spending time trying to identify problems. So now with the DDP reports that we're getting, at least primarily with our feeding program, which is where we're seeing most of it now, it allows me to kind of consolidate maybe a couple hours worth of work into a few minutes worth of work and make decisions based on that, rather than, like I said before, trying to pull everything together and make sure it all makes sense to you prior to making that decision. Probably the most interesting thing that I've looked at that's consolidated the best is the individual ingredient by feeder by day in the different rations. And that told us very quickly that we had, some pretty big opportunity to do a better job feeding the cows consistently and maybe save some feed costs and make sure that the cows are presented the same diet every day and it's as close to what the nutritionist prescribed for us to do on a daily basis. We saw, for instance, our relief feeders maybe weren't quite doing as well as they should be doing. And then another example is it seemed like we really take care and spend a lot of time feeding the milk cows, but the dry cows and the heifers maybe get sped through a little bit more. So being able to sit down in a meeting with all the feeders, show them, hey, this is what we're seeing, these are our problems, and make them aware of the issue. We've seen quite a bit of improvement in the past few months as we've used these reports. So I think you're only as good as your employees, and they don't know what they're doing unless you're presenting the data to them. So this made it very easy, and that particular report is basically red, yellow, and green. And the more green they see, the better. They're doing well, and that's easy for them to comprehend and know, hey, I'm doing a really good job, I'm all green. Then maybe the guy that's got a little more yellow and red needs to step up and do it. So when we first started the program, I guess I didn't know how we'd use it or what we would do exactly. And as we've worked through the different reports and kind of improved them and tailored them towards our needs, it's fit into our training and our weekly and monthly meetings very well. What is pretty efficient about it, or what makes it easiest, is it gets not only delivered to me, but also our feeding manager and then our head feeder. So by the time I get the report, they've already looked at it, and half the time they've already made changes or made improvements to it, which kind of keeps me out of some of the day-to-day details as much as possible. And when we talk, they have a plan, or at least we can come up with a plan together and say, hey, this is how we're going to tackle this. And then the next week when we get the reports, typically we'll see an improvement, or if not, we'll go back and come up with a new plan to fix things. I think it'd be great to pull up to your dashboard every morning and be like, hey, these are the 5 weaknesses that the DDP has uncovered that you should probably go take a look at. And that's how you start your morning up, and your first few hours of the day are checking those boxes and making sure, hey, this is working really well, or yep, there's a big problem here that we need to get resolved. And that way we're not driving from place to place and throughout the whole dairy kind of looking for problems. It gives us our 5 action points, and we go out and do that. And hopefully with more data, with more AI learning, we were able to accomplish that in a fairly short time. We've been willing to listen. I mentioned earlier that there are some differences in how we do things in the US versus Europe, and they haven't put their feet down and say, hey, no, this is how we're going to do it. They listened to the U.S. producers and helped modify things to suit our needs and not necessarily the needs of people a few thousand miles away. That's been huge. Always having a main contact has been very, very good. I know I can pick up the phone and reach out to a number of people that are higher up in their company and get answers or problems resolved quickly. So initially, the objective was just to make it right on one dairy and make sure that it's usable data. And then once we got to the point where, hey, I'm making some changes, the guys are responding to it, it's saving me time, we decided to implement it on the other herd. So now we're getting our feed data amongst some other things from all three of our sites in Colorado and just helping us get with the feeders, make more timely decisions, and just one more step in our quality control process.
Would you recommend DDP to other dairymen?
Yes, and I have. And I think by continuing to work with the dairies and partner with dairies and not make it a product you're just selling them and getting money from, but being a true partner that cares and picks up the phone, I think that's going to be a huge factor as Peacock continues to grow here in the U.S.